Most of us walk around assuming our intelligence is a fixed number. We think we are handed a biological baseline at birth, and whatever brain power we have is permanently locked in for the rest of our lives. But human intelligence is actually highly dynamic. Depending on your daily environmental inputs and behavioral habits, your brain is constantly physically rewiring itself. That neuroplasticity cuts both ways. You can train your brain to process information clearly, but you can also systematically untrain it. While genetics provide a starting point, these unexamined daily habits act as a steady, self-inflicted tax on your cognitive potential. You start to notice the symptoms in small ways. Your short-term memory gets a little weaker, your ability to hold deep, uninterrupted focus starts to slip, and complex problem-solving feels exhausting. These deficits are often the result of seemingly harmless routines that millions of people perform on autopilot every single day. The process is incredibly stealthy. Your mind loses its edge at such a microscopic rate that you never actually register the drop in your own capacity. If we don't identify and break these invisible behavioral loops, we guarantee our own permanent cognitive stagnation. The first loop begins with an inability to tolerate even 5 minutes of silence. The moment there is a pause in your day, you reach for digital stimulation, refreshing a feed or opening a new tab. This chart maps the biological trade-off. As your demand for dopamine stimulus rapidly spikes, your sustained attention steadily plummets. This volatile cycle starves your brain of boredom, the exact operational mode your mind uses to connect ideas and solve creative problems. You can look through history and find that no profound intellectual breakthrough has ever been achieved in a state of constant distraction. A quiet mind is a strict prerequisite for deep thought. When you reject boredom in favor of endless scrolling, you are actively rejecting the exact environment where human intelligence actually grows. The second loop happens in conversation. It is the reflex to constantly interrupt, talk over others, or rush your response strictly so you can win an exchange. This diagram illustrates intellectual stagnation, a state where excessive vocal output physically blocks your intake of new information. The loudest person traps themselves in this loop. By prioritizing their own voice, they operate strictly on pre-existing data, shut off from external upgrades. Meanwhile, the silent observer in that same room is running a highly active internal process. They are collecting data, observing patterns, and connecting dots. If you speak primarily to sound smart, you ensure you leave every conversation with the exact same amount of knowledge you brought into it. The third loop is the reflex to abandon a new book, a complex project, or a hard skill the exact moment that it induces confusion. This abandonment is often driven by the psychological fear of inadequacy, the intense discomfort of feeling stupid. Biologically, your brain operates identically to a muscle. It requires the strict friction of struggle and failure to trigger a physical growth response. People who purposefully endure the discomfort of feeling out of their depth are actively triggering this physical growth cycle. They are sharpening their capabilities in real time. When you prioritize mental comfort over cognitive struggle, you ensure permanent intellectual softness. The final loop is the most dangerous cognitive trap of all, the arrogant assumption that you have fully figured out a topic, a situation, or life in general. This specific brand of pride completely kills curiosity. It replaces an active desire to understand the world with rigid, unchangeable opinions. The sharpest minds actively operate like beginners. They test their own beliefs, assume they are missing critical information, and rely on humility to keep their minds agile. Try to recall the exact date you last completely changed your mind on a deeply held major opinion. If you can't recall the last time you were wrong, you are likely recycling old data rather than generating new insights. Intellectual growth requires the constant testing and shedding of outdated beliefs. This matrix outlines the 4 direct causes of a lowered IQ. Distraction kills focus, overspeaking kills learning, avoided hardship kills growth, and absolute certainty kills curiosity. Becoming smarter requires the removal of these 4 destructive behavioral blocks. You can start small today. Stand in a waiting line without pulling out your phone, or ask a genuine question instead of starting a debate in your next conversation. True intelligence emerges naturally when you stop sabotaging your own mind in the small, uncomfortable moments of daily life.